Have you ever felt like you're playing a game, but someone is quietly changing the rules while you're not looking? Well, that's kind of what we're digging into today. We're going to pull back the curtain on the mechanics of modern inflation, this hidden system that, believe me, affects every single one of us. To start, let's talk about the ideal, right? The promise of what money is supposed to be.
See, at its core, this is the dream. Money is supposed to be this stable, neutral tool, a simple way to exchange value. It represents our work, our time. This is the promise of the system. But the reality we're all living in, well, it's a whole lot more complicated than that.
And here's the central conflict, the big twist. The machine we've built to manage our modern economy, the one designed for growth and, rapid crisis response, it has a very specific kind of fuel. It actually runs on the slow, steady decay of our money's purchasing power. So how on earth does this machine actually work?
To really understand this erosion, we have to start at the foundation, and that foundation is debt. But listen, this is not the kind of debt our grandparents understood. It has been completely re-engineered. This right here is the crucial point. When everyone expects money to lose value over time, the entire purpose of debt just flips on its head. It totally transforms from this simple liability, something you want to get rid of, into a strategic financial tool that you manage to leverage growth. The goal isn't just to pay it back anymore.
And what's really wild is just how completely this thinking has reversed. We've moved from a system that valued restraint and repayment to one that basically assumes constant growth and incentivizes refinancing. You're not really trying to get out of debt anymore. You're just trying to roll it forward on better terms. And the end result of all this is pretty profound. For individuals, for corporations, and especially for governments, debt effectively becomes a permanent fixture on the balance sheet. The system just isn't built to eliminate it anymore. It's designed to roll it over, forever. Now, this whole system doesn't just operate in a bubble. In our super interconnected world, these mechanics have gone global, and that creates this synchronized effect that basically links all of our economic feats together. Because of global trade and finance, no modern economy is an island, right? A policy decision made in one major capital doesn't just stay there. Nope. It creates these tremors that are felt thousands of miles away, affecting prices and markets all across the planet. So how does this actually happen? Well, it often kicks off when a country with a major reserve currency, think the US dollar, expands its money supply. Through global trade, that inflation gets exported. Other countries then effectively import those higher costs, and before you know it, something that started locally becomes the shared, collective, global experience. But it's not just about how much money is in the system. That's only part of the story. The other really critical part is how all that money interacts with disruptions in the real physical world. And at the very center of it all, you've got energy. It is the lifeblood of the modern economy. It's a foundational cost in literally everything, from getting food to your table to manufacturing the very device you're watching this on right now. So here's the crucial idea. An expanding money supply doesn't create a supply chain bottleneck or an energy shortage. But what it does do is act like a giant magnifying lens. It takes that real-world problem and dramatically amplifies its effect on prices. And you can see the effect pretty clearly right here. A supply shock on its own, yeah, it'll raise prices. But when you combine that exact same shock with a ton of new money in the system, you get this outsized, totally magnified price spike. It's the classic case of more money chasing the same or even fewer goods. Okay, so we've covered the mechanics of debt and how this thing spreads globally. But why does inflation feel so personal? And maybe more importantly, why does it feel so permanent? This really gets to the human cost of the machine. The real tragedy of inflation is a problem of timing. Prices for gas, for food, for rent, they can shoot up almost overnight. But our wages? They respond much, much more slowly. Contracts lag, employers are cautious, and this painful gap opens up where our ability to buy things just falls way behind the rising costs. This is exactly why, even when you hear on the news that inflation is falling, it doesn't feel like a victory. The rate of increase might be slowing down, sure, but that new, higher price for a gallon of milk or a tank of gas, it doesn't go back down. It just stabilizes at a new, higher plateau, and that feeling is permanent. Let that just sink in for a second. A pause in inflation doesn't mean a reversal. 100% of the cost increases that happened are still there. They remain baked into the economy, the damage is done, and it stays done. And this brings us to a pretty radical way of looking at it. We tend to think of inflation as a mistake, right? A bug in the system. But in modern economics, it's increasingly treated as a feature. It's a managed condition, a tool used to respond to crises quickly in a world of digital money and fast policy. So this is the trade-off we've sort of implicitly made. Our system is flexible, it can respond to emergencies, but the cost is a one-way street of value erosion. We get periods of stability, yeah, but they almost never walk back the price levels that were set during the last crisis. The erosion just continues. And that leaves us with one final lingering question. If this slow, steady erosion of our money's value isn't an accident, if it's a fundamental feature of the machine we've built, then what exactly is this machine building?